Welcome to New York Got Game.
When you talk about New York legends who shaped the culture, I mean basketball, hip-hop, sneakers, there's a name that lives at the intersection of all three. It's Bobbito Garcia. And for me, as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I listened to the Stretch and Bobbito show on Hot 97 for the sounds that defined an era of hip-hop. But Bobbito, he wasn't just shaping what we listened to. He was also repping the courts from Rucker to West Fourth, documenting street ball like nobody else ever had. Now, he's put it all into a powerful memoir. It's called Bobbito's Book of B-Ball, Bong Bong, a 218-page celebration of sports, style, and soul. So today, on a special bonus episode of New York Got Game, we're chopping it up with the one and only Cool Bob Love, who joins me now. Bobbito, what's good, man?
Dexter, that's a phenomenal introduction. I mean, I might have to like put that on my IG as like every post from now on is just gonna have Dexter Henry up front.
I like it. We heard. I could tell halfway through the intro you were moved by it because we heard you yell. So I like that. I like that it hit you where it needed to. So I like that.
I mean, come on, we people of color. You know, we're not at a tennis match. We need to speak up. You know, yalla.
There we go. I like that. So I want to let people know we're going to get into it. This is the book right here that I was talking about, Bobbito's memoir. It is fantastic, and we're going to talk about it and Bobbito's career and everything today. It'll be available everywhere on July 1st. It's already available online. You can get it at some online places. And Bobbito is selling this memoir everywhere. You can find it. You can find it. If you want to find it, you can find it. But Bobbito, let's get into this because you've worn many hats. I've seen this, right? DJ, filmmaker, sneakerhead, street ball legend, author. So when we talk about this book, this memoir, what made now the right time to write a memoir reflecting on everything in your career?
I think, you know, and when it comes to the idea of writing a memoir, right, when is there not a great time? You know, we often, you know, pass moments and, you know, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to forget this for the rest of my life, right? So, yeah, I've been keeping a journal since 1990. And basically this memoir is now an outgrowth of that. On top of, I'm going to turn 60 in 2026. But I didn't tether the release to any specific milestone in my career or anything like that. It was just like, I was playing ball one day in May 2023, literally. And I just had an idea like, yeah, I should write a memoir about my basketball experiences. And that day, I created a document and I started it. And 7 months later, it was done. That's how driven and focused I was. But yeah, I mean, it's not tied into me turning 60. It's not tied into the anniversary of, it's just a beautiful project that incorporates my narrative personally, as well as, you know, the history of New York City playground basketball from 1960 to present, as well as it's a triple threat. Just like when you catch the ball, you can pass, dribble, or shoot. It's also an exhibition of my 35 millimeter photography, which I've been doing since 1995, 96. So it's 30 years of photography, 60 years of basketball experiences, and then some, both personal as well as, you know, as a person that, you know, had their fingers on the chain link fence, you know. Yeah. It's all of that. It's all of that, and it's more because I'm Latino. I'm raised on hip hop. You know, I'm embedded in basketball culture, hip hop culture, sneaker culture. So it's really the first book of its kind that I'm at least aware of where the author is not a co-author, you know, as told to. It's me. I'm the author. You know, a lot of NBA players and, you know, NCAA coaches, champions, whatever, they're beautiful. Their books are phenomenal, but it's always written by somebody else. In this instance, you're getting a natural, organic flow, just as if you were listening to me talk. And I'm in the National Association of Broadcasters Radio Hall of Fame. So I have a big following of people who just dig my voice. And I felt like it would be a disservice, you know, to deliver something that people couldn't feel like when they were reading it, they're hearing my voice inside their mind. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, that's props to Edge of Sports / Akashic, the publishers. They gave me that creative license to, and you know, that was a point that I didn't have to contest with them, but that I had to consider when I shopped it to other publishers. Is like, you have to let me be me. Let's copy edit it. Let's have it ready for the Washington Post or New York Times and the literary audience. But at the same time, through context, I can say any word in slang, and by the beauty of my rhythm, I could explain to it so that people can figure it out. Like, you don't have to be a ball player to understand, oh, he flushed it on him,
Right.
like, oh, okay. And then the next sentence I mentioned that the person scored, it was an incredible dunk. And then like, oh, flush, dunk. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think
So,
that was the beauty of it, of going through the book. It was that it absolutely is in your voice. The other thing that I didn't expect, excuse me, opening the book was, as you said, the capturing of the photography, which anybody who knows, you've done, you've documented so much around street ball culture, sneaker culture, hip hop culture. So that's really dope to see. I'm telling people, there's fantastic images and pictures in
thank
here
you.
around New York City if you open the book. Now, here's the thing, Bobbito. In the book, you mentioned writing for, quote, peace and healing. How much of this project was about looking back to move forward for you personally? Because you said it wasn't attached to any specific thing. It just felt like it was time. But, when
Yeah.
you talked about healing, I found that very interesting. How much for you
Yeah.
was it about, looking back to your past, but you were always growing and evolving, and you're able to move forward personally here?
Yeah. I think, well, so for me, dating back to 1980, that's when I really become like the b-ball fever is just taking over my life and I'm never looking back. I stopped playing football, stopped playing basketball. I mean, baseball, Ring-a-Lario, hot piece and butter. All that stuff became secondary. My friends forever make fun of me because I'm pop culture challenged. They make up references like, oh, da 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 from, Good Times or da 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 from, Mad Max. Or I have no idea. It's like once I got into ball, it was like what I got exposed to on the court, hip hop, sneaker culture, that I took in full throttle because it was intersected, But my main goal and my main practice was ball, and in the description, I wrote like basketball is a religion, the park is my church. I also included that in the narration of my first film that I directed, Doing It in the Park, Pick Up Basketball NYC. Um, it's just, you know, when I talk about healing, it's like basketball has always been that space where even today now, for 5 years, I've had a pivot in my life where I haven't done any in-person appearances. I haven't traveled. I have responsibilities to my family that, take precedent over anything. And so I'm not out there like I used to be. But when I get to the court, that's what tethers me to my past. That's what tethers me to my happiness. That's what tethers me. That's when I feel the most like myself. And I know that I'm not the only person out there that feels like that. So yes, it's beautiful photos. Yes, I'm talking about Master Rob and Future and Speedy and Corky Ortiz and all these playground legends that people may not know about. I'm giving them their propers. But ultimately, it's like, sure, the process was peaceful. The process was uplifting, but really, it's not about that. It's about this sport, what it does to me,
Hmm.
and what it does for the world. There's an author named David Hollander. He's also a professor. He wrote a book and teaches a class at NYU called How Basketball Can Change the World. And I sincerely believe that because of the access that it provides and the ability for it to be a tool for social change, which I've done. You've been to my tournament,
Yep,
FC21 All
I
World.
have.
I
Mhm.
presented in 30 international locations. The championship every summer is at the legendary GOAT, aka Rocksteady Park. So I'm using that as a platform to bring people from Japan, Hong Kong, Dominican Republic, the Philippines, 5 cities in Canada, Bay Area, LA, Philly, Boston, DC, Atlanta, Orlando, New York. They all come into one place. And now they have a global community. That's a tool for social change. People are seeing each other. They don't even speak the same language, but they're playing ball and they're feeling uplifted and they're feeling a part of something. Let me tell you something, Dexter. I just did it. I just
Yeah.
did FC21 in Atlanta, Saturday, June 28th. And my DM was like full of ball players being like, yo, thank you for this opportunity. I had such a good time. So I know I'm onto something with the inclusivity as the ethos for the tournament. And anyway, going back to the book, that's what the book, the underlying theme of the book is that basketball for me provides peace and healing. And maybe it does for you too, or maybe your peace and healing is yoga, or maybe your peace and healing is mountain climbing.
But
And
it's
for
still
those people who don't,
relatable, right? Still relatable.
it's of course,
Right.
you take away the context of basketball, what gives you your peace?
Right.
And people could read that and run with that.
Yeah, they can. No, it's still relatable. And, you know, I feel the same way about basketball. It's the sport I love, and it's obviously why I do the show. And, you know, you've done a lot of what you've done, and anybody can relate to that piece. Whatever it's your sport you love, anything you do, you can relate to it. And I think for people, this book, it's a beautiful mashup of your journey through sports, style, you know, soul of NYC. You have a lot of stories, Bobbito. So my thing here is, and this is for anybody writing a book, and I like to say this because writing a book is not an easy thing to do. You really have to be dedicated to the process.
No,
so my question for
bit.
you is, how did you decide what stories made the cut, what didn't? Because this is a 218-page time capsule. I know there was some editing, you know, from your publishing team and everybody with it, but how did you decide, all right, this story goes, this one doesn't go? How did you go through that process?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, you know, in the process of keeping in the journal for all these years and freelance writing since 1989, right? I wrote for The Source, Vibe Magazine, Slam, you know, those are the big publications, but then I was writing for a lot of smaller ones. And then I was editor-in-chief of a playground basketball magazine called Bounce for 6 years. I was a co-founder as well. So I have a lot of literature that I've created over decades. And so I kind of read them and just used those as like the bedrock for how I was going to flow with the memoir. But building upon that, I mean, you know, the original manuscript that got submitted to the publisher at Just Sports / Akashic was like 86,000 words. And, you know, so there were some feedback from them that was, you know, tough to hear, but, you know, nonetheless, I mean, that's their world, publishing, right? So I heeded their advice and I went back to the manuscript and I chopped like 22,000 words off of it. And what was left was like, you know, if you're creating a soup, you know, you chop a little bit of the garlic that's not looking too good, or the little bit of the carrot, the end of the carrot, you know, and you just take your best vegetables and you go forward with the soup. That's what my book is. It's like the best vegetables of my basketball experiences. But remember, it's not an autobiography, right? A memoir, it's just one lane of somebody's life or one era of somebody's life. And in this instance, it's my basketball experiences, you know, which feed into my entry into hip hop,
right?
And my ability to become a designer in the sneaker industry. And, you know, basketball is what gives me strength for my identity as a Boricua, you know, as you'll learn in one of the chapters, because I go play professionally in Puerto Rico. And that brings me a whole nother level of awareness of who I am. Basketball gave me that, right? And so, you know, I think, again, there's a lot of entry points for the memoir for people who aren't into ball. Like there's family, there's upbringing, there's New York City, there's social justice, there's crime and violence. There's so many things that I express in the book. You know, I witnessed a murder. You know, it's like all these things through ball, through my relationships to basketball, or through being on the court, or announcing, playing, watching, and that's what the book is. You know, it's not a book of, oh, I scored, you know, 25 points in this tournament, and you know, and so. No, it's me going to Japan and me going to Zimbabwe and Senegal and Africa and Puerto Rico and Brazil. You know, it's all these experiences. How this 5'9", 160-pound Puerto Rican that no one would have anticipated becomes globally known for the sport in any way in the 1970s and 1980s, then winds up sort of like surpassing all expectation and being like this sort of like ambassador, if you will, as well as evangelist
No,
that
you
I've
are.
become.
You are that. No, don't not if you will. You are that. You know, and I think
No,
for a lot of
I,
people in New York, Bobbito, you can mean so many different things, and I think it's really dope to hear you talk about how basketball took you to all these different places and opened up so many different doors for you. And I want to
yep.
talk specifically with you about street ball because that's
Okay.
so much a part of your world here, and especially in New York, it continues to hold a special place. I would say in both basketball and the hip hop communities. Why do you think that is? Why has there always been that link between hip hop and basketball? Because those are two of my loves, and as long as I can think about, they've been linked. Why is that here in New York City?
No, absolutely. I mean, well, let's if we look at the burgeoning culture in the 1970s of how playground basketball was expanding and how hip hop was sort of like this child sort of coming up under its wing in the same courts where the park jams were, or in the same gyms where the tournaments were, was like, the party, or the performance by Fantastic Romantic, and the Furious Five, and all these groups that become foundational for the movement, right? Um, but you know, I mean, if we look at the most iconic models in sneaker history, they're all basketball performance shoes prior to that. The game made them cool, and then hip hop adopted them and then made them like even more cool. you know, you know, Chuck Taylor, the Pro Cat 69er, the Nike Air Force One, the Adidas Shell Toe, Puma Clydes, those are all ball sneakers, you know. So there's always gonna be a link. And I think not every ball player loves hip hop, and not every hip hop head loves ball. But in New York, the community that sort of raised both of those and sort of pushed it out to the rest of the world, they're very interconnected, very interconnected.
Yeah, no,
They're
there's no doubt.
separate. They're separate. People often try to tell me, "Oh, basketball in the '90s. Basketball is the sixth element of hip hop." No, it's not. Basketball existed for 80 years prior to like Kool Herc and
Right, it
the Zulu
existed before
Kings,
that. Right. Yeah.
no, basketball existed for way longer. But no, it's they're both competitive. They both value creativity, innovation, forward thinking. So there's a lot of qualities and tenets that are equal, in both. So they make sense. They make sense.
Yeah, they make sense to go together, for sure. And you talked about this a little bit earlier because you've been doing this for a long time. You got your days at the Rucker. You talked about your first film, doing it in the park. I remember going to see that, the premiere of that, to this book. You have so much in this. What do the blacktops of NYC that you're still around, what does it teach you about life, identity, and community here in New York City? Because you're still around these courts, so I know you're still
Yeah,
learning stuff from it. What does it teach you?
everything,
Hmm.
absolutely everything. I mean, there's no, there's nothing in my career that I've done that doesn't have a a through line, a common thread with what I learned on the outdoor courts. And I'm talking about like this is outside of coaches, outside of I play pro ball, I play college ball, play high school ball. Like cool. That learning what I did in the organized context was beautiful, and I appreciate it. But being outdoors, for example, in my memoir, I mentioned a time. I mean, there's multiple times when I've been, you know, running a full, and there's someone who's unhoused on the court, right alongside a yuppie, right alongside a priest, right alongside a non-gender conforming individual, right alongside. I mean, where does that happen? Not in a golf club or a tennis club, or not in the Reebok club, not the LA club. And no knock against those, but there's paywalls there, right? Not at NYU. You got to be a student. Most the majority of contexts is where you can meet a great range of people. Madison Square Garden, you got to pay to get in there, right? In the park, it's completely free, and that's why I say the park is my church. It's free entry. Anybody can roll in. Now, if it's a competitive game, you may not be able to get on that same 5-on-5, but you can watch for free. And that's why with my tournament FC21, and doing it in 30 international cities, I'm always advocating for my local organizers, find an outdoor court. And some places it's just, it might be war torn, it might be disaster area. The local parks and recreation doesn't have the funding for outdoor court, so we go indoors. But for the most part, like, the outdoor element is beautiful, and there's the imbalance, and you got to deal with the weather. You got to deal with a court the rim might be 9.5 feet on one side and 10.5 feet from the other side.
We've seen that.
Right?
Yeah.
You might have cracked asphalt. You might have to clean the court beforehand. It ain't pretty. It ain't cute. And I love that raw, edgy feeling about, what New York City blacktop presents. You got the hecklers, you got the smack talkers, you got, it's not a manicured experience. And if you can play in that context, then you come out of that like an incredibly well experienced ball player as well as individual.
Yeah.
I'm a product of that.
It shapes you.
Right.
It shapes
I'm
you.
a product of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't say enough for the outdoor game.
Yeah. No, the outdoor game is amazing. And, you've watched a lot of people, players, basketball history. Who are some of the players that you love watching in today's NBA and WNBA? Who gives you that same feeling that you got seeing legends in the park back in the day?
I mean, that's tough because I'm, a lot of people get surprised. And I say this literally in the first few paragraphs where, like, I've never really been a spectator. Like, I'm a ball player. Like, I can't sit and watch a game because it makes me too jittery. I want to go out and play, right? And because I have a ton of family responsibilities. I'm a caregiver. I got like all these projects that I do independently. And so, I haven't watched the game since I was a halftime reporter for the Knicks in 2006, 2007. And back then, I was at half court waiting for, the buzzer to sound. And I would do my little interviews, hot minute and a half. And that was fun, but that's the last time I've been to an NBA arena to watch a game. Wow. I'd rather be out in the park, working on my handle, working on my jump shot, doing ball handling drills, documenting that, putting it up on Cool Bob Love, IG, Facebook, Blue Sky, the threads, whatever, Twitch, and inspire other people. That's where I'm at.
I didn't think about it like that for you, Bob, because you're so immersed in what you do. I hadn't really thought about the fact that you might not have time to watch other ball outside of when you're at, like FC21 and you're at tournaments like that. You're so immersed in it. And I think sometimes when you are immersed in something, you're looking at it very differently. I hadn't really thought about it like that for you.
No, I mean, thank you for asking that, though, because, I think I think the general public has often misunderstands me, because even when it comes to sneakers, people will often ask me, well, how many sneakers do you have in your closet? Like, I've been donating to various nonprofits for like 22 years now. I have a court named after me in Harare, Zimbabwe, because of how hard I've gone for, in this instance, Hoops for Hope. And yeah, I've done a lot. I've done designs, and I'm a historian, but I'm not a collector, and I never wanted to be or tried to be or was a collector. I wore my sneakers to play ball because I'm a ball player first and foremost. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I love Kyrie Irving. I see highlights of him, clips, Steph Curry is amazing, of course. All the basic players that one would think they've come across my radar because either my friends have mentioned them or people have sent me like little highlights and stuff. The Knicks do well. That's great. My friends who are diehards, I'm happy for them. But if they lose every game, I'm not losing any sleep.
It's funny. I'll get to the Knicks in a second with you. I do have some questions for you about the Knicks. As a native of New York, I do got to ask you. But considering the street ball scene is really, you know, at least for the purposes of this memoir, what people know you for, are there any NYC ballers and or tournaments, maybe you could talk about FC21, that people need to be paying attention to right now? And I will say, FC21 is dope. Will Strickland was on the show with me last year.
Yeah.
I came out to the championship at the end of the year last August at Rocksteady Park. It's really dope. People should check that out. But and listen, I also will say this. There are some amazing ballers playing in that tournament right now across the world. But who are some guys or with ladies too, because there's women to play too, out of NYC that you think maybe are really dope that people should keep their eye on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's too many. I mean, we might wind up talking for an hour.
Just give me a couple. We'll take a couple.
Yeah, sure. I mean, on the men's side, there's a young lefty out of Queens named Leaky Roof, who has been like just demolishing competition. He played pro overseas in Europe, but he's been on a come up for like the last 3 years, just making noise and going viral with his dunks and his his freak handle and everything. Renee Taylor on the women's side has been a queen for years that like nobody really knows about, because the women's game in outdoors in New York doesn't get as much attention. But Renee Taylor's like, she's a legend. She's a straight up legend who's still playing, that people can still go see basically in her prime. You know, I mean, she wins MVP in every tournament that she plays in, and she wins chips everywhere she goes. So that's just two right there that just come to first mind. And there's plenty of them. As far as tournaments go, I mean, New York is Mecca. There's like over 75 tournaments in the 5 boroughs every summer. People, when I say that number, it's probably like an undercount.
Yeah,
but there's
probably.
all these little leagues, you know, in like a tiny neighborhood that it's not attracting, you know, the teams from the Bronx and uptown, but just in that little area of Bed-Stuy, like they got their little hood tournament and they rock out, and they got, you know, for the shorties, and it's so beautiful. But you know, Zone 6 is making a lot of noise in Brooklyn. Brevoort, my brother Glenn Harding brought that back to Bed-Stuy a few years ago, redid the court. You know, Project Backboard has been doing renovations for a lot of parks that need that, you know, new asphalt and paint job, and they've been doing a phenomenal job. Got to shout them out. You know, Hoops in the Sun in Orchard Beach just celebrating their 25th anniversary.
Shout out to
you know,
Joel
you got the
Andy.
main stage like Rucker Park, that's as legendary as it gets. You got Dykeman that's been crushing for like 3 decades now. You know, like super bananas crowd on, you know, West 4th is like, that's as legendary as you get. I mean, there's just too many tournaments. Gersh out in Brooklyn.
Gersh out in East Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's too much. It's too much. But
there is too much. I agree. It's to the point, Bobbito. I always say every summer, I'm like, oh man, I want to get up to Dykeman. Oh, I got to get out to Gersh. And I haven't even been able to hit as much as I used to. I used to go Nike Pro City. I'd go check that out in the summer. Down there at LIU. I haven't been able to check out as many tournaments because there's so many, and a lot of them are being run extremely well. You mentioned Hoops in the Sun. It's great. Like New York City street ball in the summer, man, there's nothing better than that. It's just absolutely amazing. One thing with you that I have a question, right? Because you have this lifelong love of this game. How have you seen the balance between style and substance shift, especially in this social media era, right? Where there's more promotion on tournaments, more individual promotion in terms of players. How has that shifted, and do you think it's been a good thing in trying to balance the style and the substance around street ball and these tournaments?
Let me get back to the last question just for a second, because all the tournaments that, you know, are high level and globally recognized are 5-on-5. And that's one of the reasons why I conceived of FC21, which is 1v5, right? Everybody plays 21 in the park. You know, with whoever has the ball, everybody else on the court is on defense. And I watched this as a kid growing up. And then, you know, in Brooklyn, they call it Utah. It's the same game, a couple of different rule changes, you know. So in 2013, I decided, you know, as a global ambassador, I had people coming from Poland and Tokyo and Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. They're like, yo, want to play Rucker, want to play West 4th, want to play Dykeman. Like, yo, you can't just go up there and just try out, you know. So the light bulb went in my head. So, oh wow, like when I'm at the park and people playing 3-on-3, 5-on-5, I could be like, yo, I got next, right? But if people playing 21, I could just roll up, yo, who got high? I'm jumping in. So it's the most inclusive context of what we do, right? Outdoors. And that's what ushered me into the idea of like, let me do FC21 where anybody could sign up. Yes, I've had Headache, Speedy, Jack Ryan. These are playground legends playing the tournament. I've had Weekend Warriors playing the tournament. Pickup. I've had non-gender conforming players. I've had like all these different backgrounds and ranges of not, if you're not the most skilled player, you're not going to win because to score against 5-6 people guarding you, you got to have a handle and you got to be able to shoot. But they get a shirt, they get the experience of the mic, the announcer, and then they get part of this global community. So that's why for me, FC21 is so special, Dexter, and it's so different than what anybody else is doing. Yeah. No one else has ever done a tournament 21. It's the first and only in the history of the sport. And it continues to grow. I just did Orlando for the first time last week. Seattle's organizers just hit me up. They want to bring it out there. So it's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. It's just a beautiful thing. Now, going back to style and substance, I want to answer that. I think, we see even in the NBA, right? Players taking cues from what they see and what they've done themselves on the playground, right? And in the realm of the highlight, it sort of gives it higher value, right? And so now players are playing for the highlight. Now, where did that start? That started in the playground. The announcers on the mic, yo, clear it out for him. Yo, go one-on-one. He just scored on you. Get him back. And now you gassed up by the crowd. You gassed up by the announcer. And, you do something you never practiced and you score and that. And that's the highlight prior to it being documented and prior to it being a clip, right? Mm-hmm. So now we take that to the NBA and ESPN and, New York Post and all these platforms taking the highlight as the premium, right? And now players are they're trying to go 48 minutes, every play being a highlight. But if you're a wise ball player, you save that.
Yeah, you can't
you
can't bring that all the time, right?
You save that for the right moment. Yo, I ain't gonna rip them in the first quarter. I'm gonna rip them if we down by 5 points and we need that. I'm gonna let him feel comfortable until, you know what I'm saying? So, or you wait for that moment. A wise ball player like, yo, we down by 10. I need the crowd back. Okay. Oh, and now all of a sudden, the tone of the rhythm changes. So, the style and the substance, I think ball players who have played organized as well as outdoors can take the best of both worlds and combine them. For example, like, in the NBA, Kyrie is a great example of that, and there have been others, along the way. But, we don't raise robots in New York. No. We don't raise cats to just, in 21, how are you going to score against a triple team, break that, and then there's 2-3 more people behind that waiting under the basket to to block your shot. So you got to be creative. And there's no coach telling you, well, to break the triple team and then to score on 3 more people. No, that's just all instinct. And that's developed in my tournament, FC21. It's developed when people are playing pickup 21, and it's developed outdoors in a beautiful way. And that's elevated the game. We would not have the NBA and college and high school and AAU so competitive if it wasn't for the backdrop of what the playground presented to that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And you as I was listening to you say that, you're taking me back to my days of playing on the court. And I'm a Brooklynite, so yes, we played Utah. We call it Utah, a little bit different. We go by 5, but you had to be creative. You had to learn when you got triple teamed. How do you break that? How can you get your shot off? You had to, help you develop your bag, so to say, right? So you had to do this. Okay, I said I was going to ask you about the Knicks. I'm going to ask you about the Knicks. because you're a lifelong Knicks fan. I know you're from New York. You root for them. You do root for the Knicks, right? You do. You said you want them to be good. You do.
I hope that they do well, but I wouldn't really
You're not
call
living
myself.
and dying with them, though. That you do.
I wouldn't call myself a fan. It's not like I root for other teams. I just, for me, the NBA is a phenomenal marketing platform, as are the Knicks. And the better the NBA does and the better the Knicks do, the more people are inspired to go outside and play ball. That's my joy. If the Knicks made the Eastern Conference Finals, amazing. Now this summer there's going to be mad more people playing ball outdoors. So it's the ripple effect that I care about. That's what's so dear to me.
Gotcha.
You know?
So this year they make the Eastern Conference Finals, right?
Yep.
And I do agree with you. I think there is a ripple effect to that in terms of interest in basketball, getting people a little bit more outside to play the sport.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at where this team was, they were 2 wins away from the finals. Do you think they can actually bring a title to New York? And if they do, that feels like it would be the biggest ripple effect that we haven't seen since 1973. It feels like it would be pretty dope, Bobbito.
Yeah, no, I mean, for that, I wish them well. I wish them well. My father was a huge Knicks fan. In fact, like my memoir, Bobbito's Book of B-Ball Bong Bong, opens up with my father telling me to shut the TV off. I mean, shut off Happy Days, which I was watching. It was a TV series in the 70s, so that he could watch the Knicks. So my father loved the Knicks. And, that's 1973, the last time he won a chip. So it's been a long time. And listen, when I was the halftime reporter for MSG, doing all the home games, the season prior, I think 2005, 2006, they set the franchise record for losses. They only won like 23 games that year. They were still the #1 grossing team in the league. Imagine that. The worst team in the league has the highest revenue. So, I know that the Knicks mean a lot to the rest of the world, fans and players alike. I always wish them well. I have a weird relationship with the Knicks because I did the hot minute to half for that one season, and then they didn't bring me back. So I was like, dang,
I'm not. I don't know why.
I crushed it.
You did crush it. I remember I was so happy to see you on there because I felt like you represented us who are from the basketball culture of New York, and I was like, oh man, Bobbito was there. But you raise a good point, Bobbito, which brings me to my next question about the ripple effect, because you talked about how much your dad loved the Knicks. And, what do you think a championship will mean? Not just for the city, because people are going to be hyped if they win. You see how it happens when they just win a playoff game. But culturally, because now I'm thinking more about your ripple effect and what you said and what it means for basketball culture in NYC. If the Knicks win a championship, because they haven't done it since '73, what does it mean for the basketball culture here in NYC?
Well, I mean, I think the basketball culture globally, right? Like, New York is still the mecca, not just for the outdoor game, but for the sport, period. Period. They don't call it the Garden the world's most famous arena for nothing, right? And it would just be such a huge news story. It would create amplification for the NBA. It would create new opportunities. I mean, it's just, the goodness out of that is endless. And, and I think, I don't know any of the players personally on the squad right now, but they seem to work really hard. And for me, anyone that has that type of ethic deserves some reward. And there's lessons to be learned in losing, but ultimately, and I drive this point home in my memoir. Like I wasn't raised like that. My motto was, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And that's still, so like for me, like the Knicks winning the chip, great, cool. They lose, whatever. For me, it's about how do they play the game? How do I play the game? That's what matters. And, no matter what tournament I've played in, I got a sportsmanship award in hand fish 1 year. It's the biggest trophy I've ever been given in my life, And it was really dear to me because the referees always like, "Yo, Bob is so cool, never argues with us." Scorekeepers, "Yo, Bob always shakes our hand when he walks in." Like kids on the side used to come to see me, "Oh, yo," you know, they call me Cool Bob Love for a reason, you
You
know.
cool.
Well, I'm
Bob's
saying,
not
but
out
like
here
to
getting
me,
texts. You're not out
it's
here
the
doing
entire
that.
it's the entire atmosphere. For me, when I walked into the court, like everybody that was in there was important. It wasn't just the legend on the opposite squad or no, like the little kid, trying to sell waters for $1, you know, just as important as anybody else. When I used to play in Kingdom, there used to be a little kid out there with book bags selling waters. Hey, Mister, OG, oh, I got you here. Like they, everybody's important. I treat everybody equal. So,
That's how it should be.
that's, you know, I mean, the NBA is sure it's important and it's people's like ride or die, but to me, it's just the NBA is just another vehicle for the game, not any more or any less important than 10 kids in Queensbridge projects playing ball in 100-degree weather. They're just as important as the Knicks, to me.
No, beautifully said. Got a couple more things for you because
Okay.
just going back to the book, it's not just a nod to basketball. We mentioned it's a little deeper than that, right? It's about identity, love, community, resilience. You could say, what do you hope young people, especially from the inner city, take away from B-Ball Bong Bong? What do you hope is their biggest takeaway from this memoir?
Well, I think just as I mentioned that the NBA and the Knicks are a huge vehicle, like I hope that my memoir is the catalyst for whoever reads it to go out and play ball first and foremost, outdoors specifically, because they can see my experiences and what it did for me, how it bonded me with certain people, and how it changed my life, and hopefully they can assume that for their own and whatever that presents in their life. I think secondly, though, because I've been a photographer, I've been a filmmaker, I've been an announcer, I've been a ball player, I've been a coach, I've been a trainer, I've been a sneaker designer, I've DJ basketball events. I hope that people who play ball or not, but love the game, can realize like, wow, there's so much that I could do revolving around this, these two baskets, and still express joy and still contribute to the community using basketball as the tool. And so, because I've clearly demonstrated that as well. Like the book is like a blueprint for freelancers, and for ball players, right? So that's two. But then also like, I hope that, a young ball player reads it and just maybe helps them realize like that the game could provide peace and healing for them as well. Because we all have challenges. We all have quandaries that we go through, whether it's in school or work or family and, or just dealing with the new administration and, politics and taxes and whatever. It's like, wow, there's like so much going on in the world. Let's not even talk about, you know, overseas, what's happened to our brothers and sisters or our relatives. So, if people can just grab a ball and just forget about all that for like the 45 minutes, 2 hours that they're on there and just, focus on bringing this sphere into a rim, then that's a pretty simple, it's a pretty simple relationship that brings a lot of joy globally. So
Yeah, and it's powerful.
yeah.
It's powerful indeed. Last thing for me here, and I like to ask this question because I try to think about it often, and when I have the opportunity to talk to people like you, Bobbito, who've done so much, touched so many people, done so many things, and bring joys you just talked about to different people. If people, not just a book, but if people remember one thing about you, Bobbito Garcia, What do you hope that it is? What do you hope that people remember about you when it's all said and done, whether they read this book, whether they not, whether they were touched by you in some other way? What's that one thing you hope people remember about Bobbito Garcia?
I hope that they remember that I was a ball player first and foremost. When I moved to Harlem in 2004, I'll never forget, like, because I was doing the Knicks halftime report, but then that happened because in 2006 I was hosting and creative producing a series called Summer Ball, which was the first of its kind. We would showing highlights of West Fourth and Dykeman and Hoops in the Sun and Rucker and all these tournaments going around in the five boroughs, and even what was it, McKay Park in Jersey. So I would go into a bodega and the old lady would be like, "Oh, I recognize you. You're that guy with the handle." What? Or I'll go into Jefferson projects, or I'll go into Foster, or I'll go to Wagner. Like, I would go to looking for Run, and kids would be like, "Yo, what you doing here? We see you on TV." And I'm like, "Same thing you doing. I'm here to play ball," And so people recognize me as a ball player in Harlem, of all places. Like, what? Like, that was like, oh my God. I mean, I felt good about being recognized as a DJ and an announcer. And, I did NBA Street Volume 2 for EA Sports. I got a video game coming out in 2026. I can't speak about just yet.
You got to share that with me later. We'll got to find out about
that. I'll have to come when that drops. I'll have to come back and talk
about NBA Street Volume 2 and you being a part of that. I don't even know how I forgot about that. I used to play that all the time.
Well, yeah, and it sold millions of copies, and it's still on most people's like top 5 all time for basketball games or sports video games, period.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I turned that game upside down. So a lot of people recognize me for a lot of different things, but ultimately, like, ball is so special to me. And when it's said and done, I just want people to be like, "Yo, that dude, he loved basketball like nobody I've ever known."
It's hard for me to think that people wouldn't say that right now. So the fact that that's how you want to be remembered, it's fitting for you. I almost would have expected you to say an answer like that. Like, you love basketball so much.
Yeah.
And you love the culture around basketball so much from the time I met you. And I was trying to remember this before. I actually don't remember the first time I met you was actually at a tournament, which I think it was. I was also at the premiere doing it in the park. It's a pleasure for me to interview you about this memoir. It's crazy through my career covering basketball. And I think I'll say this for a lot of people that are born and raised New Yorkers that love basketball. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate everything you've done. I encourage everybody, check out this book. Check it out. It's Bobbito's book of B-ball, Bong Bong, a fantastic memoir. It's going to be available everywhere starting July 1st. Bobbito, this has been a long time in the making because I know you're a fan of the show. I had to get you on here to talk about this book and everything, and I appreciate all the time you've given me today to talk about it. So thank you, brother. And I got to see you soon, hopefully at one of these tournaments. We got to catch each other soon.
Okay, sounds good, man. I appreciate the time as well, and big up to your production staff and everybody at the New York Post. Growing up, I actually write about the Post in the book in one of the chapters. I'm not gonna give much out there, but props to the platform, props to you,
Thank you.
And everybody out there. Enjoy the read. All right, peace.
Enjoy the read. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for watching New York Got Game.